It's 4 o'clock on a Monday. You know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week, coming to you live from YouTube. Yeah, baby. Let's see if this works. And thank you, band. Thank you, fake audience. Welcome to the big show. Yes, we are. We're off, Lauren says. I'm scared. It doesn't. There's not a lot that scares me, but this scares me because there's new stuff to deal with, and we're live. But before I get into all that, I want to say just I'm blown away by the bad news coming out of Las Vegas this morning, and my thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of anybody who was killed or injured in that. Horrifying. Yeah, just horrifying. And Tom Petty, the update an hour ago is he's actually not dead. He's clinging to life. Anyway, also devastating. I just said to somebody about a week ago, I think Tom Petty's the only rock star that I've not seen in concert. And there you go. Anyway, welcome you guys, and hopefully this works well. Hear that sound? That is the sound of the CPU, the central processor in my computer, which is a fairly beefy MacBook Pro. It does not like Wirecast, the software that does the encoding for streaming that gets it to YouTube. And I've been dealing with that all day, trying to find workarounds and changing settings so it puts less stress on the CPU. So you are going to hear the sound of the fan in my laptop going. Don't know how to solve that problem just yet, but we're working on it. Marion Laird says, "Don't be scared, Michael." Marion, you're the reason I'm scared. It's because, wow, and you're actually Marion Laird instead of Mary Band, but there it is. It's official. Marion says, "Still buffering here, though." So now we know, Marion, it's your connection or your computer. It ain't on this end, but we love you. Anyway, great to see you guys. Hey, Dave Skinner, Linda Cullum, Lauren DeGiorgi, Mark Hemley. We will write you a song. Hi, guys. Kano here. Sean Afshar. Already asking questions. Wait until we're really rolling here. Anyway, so we're excited. I hope this works well. Thank you to Bria for helping me get this all set up. Other than the fan on the CPU working a little too hard, let me check my activity monitor. It's 60%. Whoa, and it just jumped it to 265. I don't know why. Anyway, I've got the air conditioner on nice and cold to keep my computer running cool. I've got the back end propped up on a couple of, what do you call those little guys? Post-it note pads to give it a little elevation, let a little more air in. So what else do I want to talk about? Road Rally. We're so close to posting the schedule and the classes and the mentors and all that stuff. This is that little window of time here when we get down to the end where people are going, "Oh, I thought I could come, but now I can't," so we're moving stuff around. I will tell you, though, I have never, ever, and I know I say this every year, but I mean it every year, and I think I deliver on the promise, which is I've never felt as good about what we're doing in the ballroom as what we're doing in the ballroom this year. I spent a 2-hour lunch meeting yesterday with a music supervisor going. He's the gentleman that's going to be doing the spotting session. And I've got to give a shout out to Mojo, because I think it was Mojo that made that suggestion some time ago. Maybe it was for a Taxi TV episode and I took it to the Road Rally. I don't know, but I think it was Mojo. Anyway, we are actually going to do a spotting session. This is the gentleman that was the music supervisor on the film Jobs with Ashton Kutcher. And he's doing a show called Me, You, Her, and all kinds of stuff. He's really, 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 really busy. He and I spent 2 hours yesterday talking about spotting sessions. And the whole time I kept going, damn, I wish I was just videotaping this. I guess I could have with my phone, although we're outside. But that is going to be, and that happens on Saturday. So get ready for this. Here, I'm going to pop open. Oh, you know what? Let me get something out of my briefcase. I was going to pop it open on my computer, but I thought maybe I should. Do I have it with me? No. Do I have it here? No. Do I have it here? Yes. There it is. The working schedule. So on Saturday, we have confirmed. Oh, I added a listening panel. We're going to do something this year that I don't think we've ever done in our 20 years previous to the Road Rally, and that is on some of the listening panels, we're actually going to run listings, and we're going to take probably a 15 to 30 minute section, maybe 15, 20 minutes of those panels, and play stuff for the supervisors and library owners that's been pre-screened by our screeners. The reason being that as the rally has gotten bigger and people who are not members but guests can submit for some of these panels, some years we get lucky. 2015, I think, we had a bunch of great music. 2016, we had some moments where I'm sitting there going, oh, I don't want these supervisors to go home thinking that what they just heard randomly pulled in this panel is representative of all taxi member music, because it wasn't. So we're going to play some stuff that's been pre-screened for that. And I know people are going to complain, well, gee, Michael, you took away from the randomness of it. Therefore, my stuff didn't get played. So I added yet another panel. So on Sunday morning, we are going to do, at 9:30 on Sunday morning, I'm doing a panel called Early Bird Gets the Worm Listening Panel. And we're going to do a mixture of library owners and supervisors for that one, so we can get a couple of different perspectives. So anytime that we've lost by doing the pre-screen stuff on those other panels will clearly be made up for by adding an hour and 15 minutes of other panel time for listening on Sunday. We are going to do live screening with two of my favorite screeners actually screening stuff for a real listing in the ballroom so that you guys can kind of see their thought process and how they go about it. We have, in fact, confirmed the video editor who is going to lay stuff into an actual episode of a reality show. And on Saturday, where is it? Okay, after lunch at 2:30, we're doing a thing, the spotting session that I talked about, which I've got to believe that 99%, as it says in the schedule, 99% of all musicians have never seen a spotting session. And then followed by music supervisor listening and feedback panel, which is Mason Cooper, Frank Palazzolo, Jonathan Weiss, Trisha Holloway, who hasn't responded to my email yet, and Jacob Nathan. And then I just added, I was typing it literally before we went live on air, which is, I'm doing, where, I think I closed that document. Anyway, it's going to be like an informal hangout with a couple of supervisors that have hit me up and said, dude, I'm going to be there. I love answering questions. Do you want to just do like an informal hang in the ballroom and have people hit us with anything that's on their mind? So less moderation from me and more questions from you guys. So there's so much at this year's rally, just like silly good stuff. Okay. Linda Cullum says she's going to attend everything. Awesome. Just turned off the phone, so it's helping. Okay. Man, that fan is driving me nuts, but what can I do? Anyway, if you hear that, that's what it is. It's the fan on my laptop. So without any further ado, let's get this episode of Taxi TV underway. Today is Ask Michael Anything. And honestly, Bria printed out these questions before we started the show, and I really haven't looked at them. So I may turn red with embarrassment. The first question is from somebody, I'm guessing from South America, because I can't pronounce your name. Joe Guillermo Matera Boza. Number one, if I post a new song to a platform such as SoundCloud, is it enough proof that the song is mine in case of a future dispute? No. The answer, I'm not a music attorney. I'm not any kind of attorney, but I can tell you with pretty fair amount of certitude that just posting it online doesn't mean, let's say, Bree's a songwriter. I could steal her song and put it up on SoundCloud and say it's mine. But it wouldn't be. It would be Bria's. She's sitting in here with me. So that's why I'm pointing over there. She's over there. Um, Next part of that, and how do I register my song or cue prior to start collecting royalties? I am in Canada. Well, first thing you do is put down the beer and the hockey stick. Um, I love Canadians, nicest people on the planet, by the way. Um, but you should register everything with your PRO. What's the PRO in Canada? SOCAN, thank you. I was going to say SOCAN, but that's France. Register it with SOCAN. That's how you're going to get paid on the back end stuff. And as far as registering for copyrights, look, legally, I should probably tell you, yes, register your copyright for everything you ever write. Now, the people, taxi members who are very prodigious in the number of instrumental cues they do, probably hundreds a year, they oftentimes don't register their stuff with the Copyright Office because it doesn't make financial sense for them. First of all, they look at it as what I affectionately call a stupid little instrumental cue. It's not like it's going to be a hit for Beyonce. It's not something that's going to be on an album that's going to sell 5 million copies. It's not going to be a #1 hit on Billboard. It's a little piece of instrumental music that's going to end up in an episode of a reality show and may earn, $13.26 for that. Over its lifetime, maybe it'll earn a couple $100. But the bottom line is they don't seem to care if somebody rips it off. And frankly, I don't think anybody would be interested in ripping off a little instrumental cue. By not registering with your performing rights organization like SOCAN in Canada or ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC in the States, you are completely eliminating the possibility of collecting any money from performance royalties when that cue airs on a TV network. So that's something that you should and absolutely have to do in order to get paid. Let's see, number 2, is it possible to get a hold of one's taxi screeners for a one-to-one critique? If not, what's the closest I can get? A custom critique? I'm going to the Road Rally this year. Well, first of all, you're really smart to go to the Road Rally, the Road Rally is like a month from this Thursday. So go to taxi.com/rally, and even though the final schedule, we still have last year's stuff up, you can in fact register for the Road Rally. That's number 1. Number 2, go to the one-to-one mentor situation. You want to sit down with somebody, play them your music, and get feedback from them. Not to mention the fact a lot of relationships that have resulted in deals and placements and income have resulted from the one-to-one mentoring thing. Custom critiques. Taxi does offer a custom critique. It's not tied to any particular listing. Frankly, we tell the screeners take as much time as you need within reason. We don't want them to spend like 3 hours on one critique. But the bottom line is it's a money-losing proposition for Taxi because they tend to go kind of overboard and give really incredible feedback. We don't push that aspect of Taxi a lot. I probably should. I'm just busy marketing other stuff, promoting the Road Rally and taking care of, running the business day to day, and really don't give that the attention it deserves. But it's a great feature that the people who use the custom critique aspect of Taxi rave about it. They love it, and that's the best you can do. As far as reaching out personally to a screener, we haven't had anybody threaten to come over here and beat any screeners to death with a baseball bat in a very long time. But it has happened. It happened in 2001, I believe, maybe 2002. We've always used numbers for the screeners because it gives them a certain sense of security. I know that members love to play the "I bet I know which screener that was" game, and sure, go ahead, play the game, figure it out. But the bottom line is, we even used to have a camera in the screening room called the screener cam, and it was live when the screeners were here, so people could watch the screeners working. We had a couple screeners that had real issues with that. They would wear hats to work. When Katy Perry worked here, she used to wear a baseball hat to work almost every time, or wear a hoodie and pull the hood up. And I think a lot of that was because she didn't want to be watched. She wasn't famous yet. She just didn't want people watching her work, and I get that. The taxi members really like the screener cam, though. Um, it would be clunky for us to say, sure, let us hook you up with this screener or that screener. There are weird laws that regulate that in the state of California, by the way. Um, and we actually set up the cubicles here in the office so they could be wired for telephone and video chat to do it. And for the longest time, I've wanted to do it. And there are just always little obstacles that have prevented us from doing it. So the custom critique and the road rally are probably your best answers.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you liked a
That's Bria talking, in case you're wondering.
if you liked a critique you got from a screener, you can request their number in the custom critique, and they might give you that person.
Right,
I've done that.
but you can't do it by name.
No.
So yes, if you got something from screener 109, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, and you feel at 109, people love screeners that get them. They feel like, oh, this person really understands me. It's not so much that they understand you or necessarily appreciate your music just for the sake of appreciating it. They appreciate it within the context of the listing. They are not forwarding music that they like. They're forwarding music that is right for the listing. So don't get so emotionally attached with the screener that you feel like, oh, they're my particular screener. They get me, and they're going to make sure that if I get a custom from them, that they're going to give other screeners the elbow and make sure I get forwarded. None of that stuff will happen. But yeah, you can. Custom critiques are actually $20, unless somebody raised the price and didn't tell me. Aren't they $20, Bria?
Yes.
Yeah, people are saying 25, but I think it's 20.
It's fine.
I own the company. I know this. I don't know much, but I know that. Okay. Moving on. This one's from Ronald Menard. Do the taxi screeners listen to submissions through headphones or through speakers? And the answer is both. It used to be that 95% of all the screening took place here in the screening room at Taxi, and they all wore headphones. And we actually auditioned a bunch of different brands of headphones. And at one point, we had some really, I want to say Audio Technicas or something that were fairly pricey. And lo and behold, they were disappearing. They would just walk out of here a lot to the point where one day we went, more than half of our headphones are gone. And they were, I want to say, like $150, $200 a pop headphones. So then we decided to get cheaper headphones, and we really spent a lot of time listening to $50 to $75 headphones. And we found some Sony headphones that, for lack of any better way to describe them, they sound like the Yamaha NS10s behind me. They don't sound pretty, and they don't sound bad. They just sound, they're very middle of the road and very average, so that anything that sounds good on those should sound good elsewhere. I know that some taxi members over the years have gone out and asked for the actual model number, and they've gone out and purchased those headphones, and they'll check their mixes on it. And the belief is that if I check my mixes on these headphones, the same ones the screeners are going to use, and then send my stuff into Taxi, then it's going to sound really good to the screener, and they're going to forward it. Honestly, I don't give that a lot of weight, nor does it. Yeah, I don't give it a lot of weight. And over time, some of our favorite screeners, people that worked here for years, were moving because it's so ridiculously expensive to live here. So they've moved to Las Vegas, they've moved to Nashville, they've moved to Australia, all over the place. And we let them work remotely because they're really good at what they do, and they're responsible enough to meet deadlines even if they're not under the roof. And it's gotten to the point where a big chunk of the screening takes place at the screeners' homes. And in many cases, the screeners will listen to speakers now. What kind of speakers? I can't tell you. I have no idea, but I would guess that they're reasonably good speakers because these are all very credible people in the industry that aren't going to listen to crap. Um, but and some of them listen at home on really good headphones. So the bottom line is, it's all over the place. Just like human beings, A&R people at labels, music supervisors. One of my friends is a music supervisor. Does all of his listening at home in bed at night, or the majority of it, because that's when the phones aren't ringing. So not unlike myself, his wife probably wears little black eye thing and earplugs. That would be my wife. I think she says it's because the laptop bothers her. Maybe she just doesn't want to listen to me. She can shut me up by tuning me out with an eye mask and earplugs. But bottom line is, I can't recommend anything that is going to increase your chances of getting a Ford. So there you go. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for you there. Hey, Nathan Nasby. Ah, this one's from Nathan Nasby. And yes, Nathan wants to know, did you ever find out what bass Prescott Niles played when you saw him live? And I did ask him, and he did tell me. Do you happen to know if Prescott's here right now? Would you? And ask him to write down the brand of bass that he played when that he plays on stage. Thank you. Um, the reason Nathan's asking that is because I commented, I went to see the band Missing Persons, and Prescott Niles, one of our longtime screeners, was the bass player on the song "The Knack" for My Sharona, or the song "My Sharona" for The Knack. He was a band member, and then Doug Feiger passed away, and the band broke up, obviously. So Prescott's been touring with Missing Persons now for years, and I went to see him live. Deb and I went to see him, like, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago. And the sound of his bass on stage was mind-blowingly good. Like the best bass sound I've ever heard coming off a live stage ever. He's not here today. It's funny because he's here almost every day. So I don't know. Can you Google it and see what kind of bass Prescott Niles plays? It was a brand I'd never heard of before, frankly. So hopefully Bria will have an answer for you momentarily. I guess you guys could Google it as well. Um, I see people commenting in the chat room. Yes, I prefer YouTube to the other method. Way smoother, no ads. Love the no ads. Uh, Peter Rahill says, "Congrats, Taxi, for bailing on Ustream in favor of this more user-friendly format." User-friendly for you. Not so user-friendly for me, but I'll get used to it. Steve Pullman said, "What's that hiss? That hiss is the central processor of my laptop straining to work with the Wirecast software. That is what transcodes the video into a streaming format so that we can watch it on YouTube." So yes, we're trying to solve that problem. And I already spent hours today on that. Even though I'm working on the Road Rally, need every frickin' minute I can get. Any luck on that bass?
I can't figure it out.
Really?
I'll keep
Okay. Don't. Okay. Linda Collins says, "I'm doing a great job." Thanks, Linda. It ain't that hard. It's the central processor that's working the hardest here. Okay. When will the ballroom and breakout classes? This is from Vicky Flowith. When will the ballroom and breakout class schedules info for this year's Road Rally be posted? I believe Wednesday is the official day. We've got our web guy coming over. I've got all the files. Angel, who is my right arm and left lung for the Road Rally, and she takes care of scheduling all the one-to-one mentors, getting all the stuff for the classes, which you can't even imagine. I mean, class titles change, class descriptions change. People give us a title and a description, and then they hit us up, a week before the rally when we've already posted the stuff. Can I change it? I really don't want to do it again this year. Well, dude or dudette, why did you give it to us 3 weeks ago? So she deals with all that stuff, and Angel and I have to coordinate because a lot of the one-to-one mentors or teachers or mentor launch people, they're also on panels in the Grand Ballroom with me, so we can't very well have them on a panel and be teaching a class at the same time. It doesn't work out all that well. So there's a lot of coordination that goes on, and that's why we have to wait and post it like a month out before from the rally, because we need everything really locked down. Yeah, anyway. Uh, Next one's from Michael Donnelly. Michael says, Michael, I know you're planning to give a complete rundown on how to get started in writing music for sale. I cannot get to the convention this year due to previous commitments. What would you recommend in the meantime, other than joining Taxi, of course? Frankly, watching Taxi TV. That thing that Michael Donnelly is talking about is a session that I'm going to do in the ballroom at the rally on Friday, and it's called This Is How You Do It. Taxi's Michael Lasko will give you the straightforward steps to building a career and income stream with instrumental cues in film, TV, and advertising songs. Easy as ABC, 1, 2, 3, if you follow the plan and do the work. I am going to do a 45-minute consolidated thing that just literally gives it to you. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. What I can't do is teach you how to write a melody or how to write a lyric in that amount of time. I'm not sure I could do that in any amount of time because I'm not a songwriter. But literally, I'm going to give you a list, an order of things to do, and you can. I'll probably end up posting it online, and you can print it out and you can check them off. And I didn't come up with this. The members came up with this. They inspired the idea for this panel. I've seen too many of our members, some of whom are in the chat room today for this show, that have become very successful. Now, very successful could mean they're just happy to have some stuff on TV and get their music out there. Other people that are making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year extra income on top of their day job and feeling really good about the fact that they can sit down with their family and go, look, that's the old man's music there on that show. And there are other people that are making 10 or 20 grand a year as a side business on top of what they normally do for a living. And we have Taxi members that are making $100,000 to upwards of close to $300,000 a year because they got to a point where they could walk away from their day job and pursue music full time. So everything that I've learned from all those people at all those different levels is and convey to you guys in 40. Michael Donnelly, I wish you could be there. Whatever that prior, unless it's a funeral or a wedding, cancel it. Get there. Um, this one's from Lauren DeGiorgi. Do the screeners listen to the submitted songs before the deadline, or do they wait until the submissions are closed? Both is the answer. We can predict pretty accurately by the velocity at which submissions are coming in, how many submissions we're going to get for any listing. And we know typically, sometimes we can tell like an hour after the listing has gone out, certainly like a few days to a week before the listing deadlines, we know about how many submissions we're going to have. And we even factor in the fact that like when the finish line comes up, the deadline is there, that all of a sudden we get a bump. And it sometimes for like a big dollar one, a $20, $30, $50,000 commercial maybe, the submissions will double in the last 3 hours before the deadline hits. So we are able to schedule screeners. Anyway, what the heck was I talking about? So we know if we have to assign screeners to start listening in advance of the deadline. So the bottom line is both happen. There you go. That's page 1, done. Moving on to the last couple, and then I'll take some from the chat room. Okay, you mentioned that lots of screening is now done remotely. Do the screeners have a way to listen to submitted tracks online? Yeah, that's how they're listening, is online. They actually log into Taxi's server and they listen to the music online. Will the screener hear the most recent version I uploaded to my Taxi page or the one that was there when the listing closed? It depends when they screen. You know, if we started listening, if it's something that's going to get hundreds of submissions and we start screening in advance of the deadline, they could hear your earlier version. If it's something where we're only getting, 25, 50, or 100 submissions, not that many, we'll probably wait till the deadline hits. So if you uploaded something different, a newer version, the day of the deadline or the morning before the deadline closed, then they'll hear the most recent thing. So again, it depends. There is no hard, fast rule. That was from Jim Stamper. Hey, Jim. JD. Uh, Question relating to instrumental cue writers. I was wondering how many cues I should be shooting for per week as someone with a full-time day job. It's a great question. Currently working an average of 50 hours a week at my day job and creating 2 to 5 cues per week depending on the genre and style. Looking to make the 5-year plan happen. I'm currently on the back half of my second year. Thanks. That's from Mark Kimley. Hey, Mark, how are you? Uh, I think you're doing pretty well at doing 2 to 5 cues a week. Look, we all know that it's easier to do, say, a swampy acoustic guitar dobro-esque cue that may only require 2 or 3 instruments and just not that hard to do. You could bang that out in an evening. You get home from work at 6, 7 o'clock, have a little dinner, hang out with your family, tuck everybody in for the night, and go off to your basement studio. Um, I don't know. I would guesstimate 2 to 3 hours for a cue like that. Then again, if you're doing something that is EDM based, that requires a lot of work on production and a lot of layers of instruments, or orchestral, dear God, the amount of time you would spend doing all the articulations and stuff in an orchestral thing to make it really sound great, that's going to be infinitely more time than doing that simple little acoustic guitar dobro thing. So 2 to 5 a week and holding down a job for 50 hours a week, I think you're doing great. You're doing better than most people. And, just knowing that about you, I have little doubt that a couple of years from now, we're going to be hearing, like, man, I'm getting placements all the time. So keep up the great work. All right. I am looking at the stuff. You're welcome, JD. Really dying to know why it is. Yeah, Wirecast is now.
It's fine now. Yeah.
No, it's not fine. The number I'm seeing on my CPU over
on
here.
Your CPU.
Yeah, my CPU. It's like killing it, and I don't know why. I can't be the only guy that's running Wirecast on YouTube on a relatively beefy Mac laptop. Got 16 gigs of RAM, and it's like an 18-month-old computer. Oh well. So let's take some questions from the chat room. Patrick Welch says, I'm glad I got home in time to see this. I'll be glad when that fan quits running on my laptop, Patrick. I'm going to take my wallet out. You know what? Don't ever put your wallet on top of your cell phone when your phone is in vibrate mode. I have actually wiped out a credit card by doing that. Charles Wilson says he enjoys hearing what others are doing because it inspires him as well. That's one of the things about the community, Taxi's member community, is there's a lack of competition and a supportive spirit where people hear about somebody else doing really, really well, and rather than like being grudging about that or being envious about it, they're like, wow, that's awesome, man. I'm glad I heard this about you because that lets me know that I can do it too. So I love that. That's the spirit of Taxi. That's the spirit of our community. That's the spirit of what goes on in the chat room. More than anything, that's the spirit of what goes on at the Road Rally every year. So again, November 2nd through the 5th, come to the Road Rally. Somebody asked me the other day, a lot of people every year say, like, what's the best thing I can do before I come to the Road Rally? Honestly, there are 2 books that you really need to read before you come to the Road Rally because you'll be so far, I don't want to say ahead of the pack, ahead of yourself. You'll be so much better prepared for the information that you're going to get at the road rally if you use these books as a precursor to get yourself up to speed before you get there. So it makes the whole experience more valuable. One of those books is, I've only got one of them sitting here, Robin Frederick's book, Shortcuts to Songwriting for Film and TV. I cannot recommend this book more highly, and yes, I publish it, and I will make a few bucks if you buy this book. But I think you guys know me well enough to know that I wouldn't recommend, there I am, I wouldn't recommend this book. I wouldn't have published the book if I didn't believe it, believe in it. And what this book does is teaches you the difference between writing songs for records and writing songs for TV and film. And there is a big difference. Yeah, they both have melody. Yeah, they both have lyrics. Yes, they both have emotion. Uh, but it's a different world. And frankly, in some regards, if not several, I think it's easier to write songs for film and TV. And that book is the only book on the market that does that. Um, it's just great. And the other book is I've got it over here on the shelf. It's Dean Kripke's book. Demystifying the Genre by Dean Kripke. This is the follow-up to Demystifying the Cue. Frankly, I can't say that this is the better of the two books, but this is the one that I would recommend that you read before you come to the Road Rally. If you read Robin's book and this book, and you've got a month, and you'll find both of them very readable, very easy to get through. It's not laborious to read these books. You won't be able to put them down, frankly. You will be so in tune. Your brain will be so like in the zone of where you need to be that the road rally then will become a much more productive situation for you because you'll know the right questions to ask. You won't spend your time asking rookie questions. You'll be at like a mid-level just from reading those two books, and you'll be able to understand stuff that you hear in classes and panels even better. You'll be able to ask more intelligent questions. You'll be able, when you're networking and hang out with your fellow members in the bar or wherever at night, you will just find that you're already in the zone. You already know what to ask, and it just doesn't get any better than that. Let's see, any more questions in the chat room?
Someone asked, Sherry Milano asked, is hip hop still the most requested genre, or are you seeing a shift?
Okay, Sherry Milano asked the question. Sherry Milano Marcus asked the question: is hip hop still the most popular, frequently asked, requested genre, or are we seeing a shift? I would say still hip hop and EDM are probably the two most requested genres. Of course, it depends on the show. You know, a love story is probably going to have more like light rock or singer-songwriter and acoustic, organic-driven stuff. And if it does have stuff that's a bigger production, it's probably going to be like a more a ramped up version of a singer-songwriter song. You know, it's going to have a full band in it, but it's not going to be, probably not going to be EDM, probably not going to be hip hop. Although, you know what? Both of those genres infuse so much of what's out there musically today. I don't think we've ever been through a period in the entire, well, and certainly in the 40-some years I've been in the music industry, I've never seen a period where there's so much crossover between genres. You can find acoustic songs nowadays that have hip hop beats. You can find EDM that combines with hip hop. You can find rock that it has an EDM beat but has rock guitars layered on it. And it's confusing. I know, you know, the gray areas make it harder for all of us. Ooh, this is bringing me back to a conversation I had with the music supervisor yesterday. He and I were talking about the language of the supervisors in general, that supervisors generally and executive producers working on shows don't often think of, I need a hip hop song for this. They need a song about an emotion, a feeling, a situation. Um, could be a party. They may say, I need party music. Well, what are you going to hear at a party? You're probably going to hear beat driven party pop. You may hear pop punk. You may hear EDM. You may hear hip hop. But what the, EP, the executive producer on the show, and the music supervisor who are doing the spotting session, when they come to that party scene, they generally will talk in terms of, okay, we need some party music. We're probably going to need 3 different songs for this scene, and we're going to have, the start of the conversation when they walk into the party. You're going to have something that's going on in the middle of the party, and then you're going to have a situation where the characters are probably getting thrown out of the party or leaving the party in a hurry because they broke a statue at their best friend's house or something like that. So they will talk about in a spotting session that they need party music, and it doesn't mean that all 3 need to be hip hop or all 3 need to be EDM or all 3 need to be pop punk, punk pop, whatever. It's got 2 P's in it. So there you go. I lost track. Oh, so that's going back to Sherry's question. Though EDM and hip hop, I think, are probably the 2 most requested genres. Um, I see. Hey, Geza's in there. Geza X, um, an amazing punk producer, a legendary punk producer who joined Taxi a year ago and showed up at the rally last year. Um, awesome. Uh, any more questions? Joe Canizaro says, I've been trying 3 years and I can't seem to match the style that you're looking for. Have you thought about offering a service that helps identify styles for we who are genre challenged? Any tips? Honestly, we have considered that many, many times throughout the company's history. The problem being that 3 different people, 3 experts in the industry could listen to the same song, and each of them might have a different opinion, especially in this gray area of crossover land that I've been talking about for the last few minutes. If you have something that's pop punk, is it a pop song with a little punk influence? Is it a punk song that has a pop basis? Same thing would be true for EDM or hip hop. So it's getting harder and harder to just say that is that. And even if you have 3 people, you're liable to get 3 different opinions. I don't know if I've ever spoken about this before in Taxi TV, but years ago, we actually experimented with doing a 3-person panel. We thought about raising the submission fee and doing a 3-person panel on every listing because the members were asking for it, going, well, I hate having my life determined by one person. They get to decide if this submission lives or dies. So we did a little experiment in the conference room, I think like on a Thursday night, a Friday night, and a Saturday all day. And we tried 3-person panels on songs. The results were exactly identical for the same songs being done by one person. I wouldn't have even predicted that. But in other words, identical as to what got forwarded and what didn't. What wouldn't be identical, and was evident somewhat in those 3-person experimental panels, was that people rarely agreed on what a genre was. They could agree on whether or not it hit the mark for the listing. They could agree on whether or not they would forward it as a screener. But agreeing on a genre can be a little touchy. So if we said, hey, Bob, your song is pop punk, and then every time you see a listing that comes up for pop punk, you submit it, or punk pop, you submit it for that listing, you would probably find that more often than not, you wouldn't get forwarded not because the genre is wrong, but for other reasons. Maybe it said it was looking only for up-tempo, and what you said was a little bit more mid-tempo, which would be difficult for punk pop, but I'm just throwing that out as an example. So I'm trying to think of other examples. It may be that your lyrics didn't cut it. It may be that your lyrics were inappropriate. It may be that your lyrics were very specific and talked about a relationship you had with your old girlfriend, and the lyric was so like inside baseball that it wouldn't make sense to anybody else. Or it could be that the lyric just wouldn't work in your average TV or film scene because of the style of lyric writing. So there are all these other factors that go in there. And look, we have screeners. We discourage them from saying you should submit. People submit a singer-songwriter song, and screeners will sometimes say, this sounds more like country to me. Well, then that poor member sends it in for the next country listing going, one of your screeners told me it was country. And then the country screener goes, this ain't country. And they're right. The first screener was just trying to find a way out, frankly. Or maybe, in all honesty, they listened to it. To them, it rang a few bells, like it leaned towards country. It doesn't mean that it's great country. It doesn't mean that it's strong country. And it doesn't mean that just because one screener said, sounds more like country to me, that it's going to be right for every country listings. But the members tend to take the stuff literally. And then we've got a problem on our hands because Taxi said my song is this genre and I sent it in for that genre. You guys, which one is it, you guys? So that's why we don't do that. But we talk about it a lot. Got another question?
Yep. Frisch 101 says, I'm looking forward to my first road rally. Does everyone bring CDs to share? Single song CDs for panels, multiple song CDs by style for mentors, full length or compilation segments? Trying to plan.
Can I read that?
Yeah, sure. It's in the middle.
Thanks. Whoops. Okay, looking forward, this is from Frisch 101, looking forward to my first road rally. Does everyone bring CDs to share? Yes. Single song CDs for panels? Yes. Multiple song CDs by style for mentors? Yes. Full length or compilation segments? Yeah, you could do, and you know what? Make a compilation like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Once you get over that, getting a little long, and just take literally like the absolute best segment and crossfade it with the next piece, so it just goes like hit chorus, hit chorus, hit chorus. Even if you're doing instrumentals, you know what the hit chorus, where the money part is, right? So just boom, boom, boom. Even if you know that you've got a great guitar riff coming up in the middle of a drum turnaround in 15 seconds, nobody gives a damn about that great guitar riff. They're looking for the overall effect. Does this sound like the kind of guitar rock that could be used in a chase scene? Yes, it does. So yeah, those were great questions, and the answer is yes to all of them. Thank you, Bria. Geza X says, my opinion, this is obviously in response to somebody else in the chat room, says, my opinion is that you may not get forwards the first year, but you learn the whole shiz here. Seriously, then you get a clue and start deconstructing examples. That's why good digital audio workstation habits are important. Anna Yarborough says that. True, very true. Yeah, I'm looking for other questions here. Hey, this could be the shortest episode ever. No questions? You guys, come on. As soon as the show's over, then you'll have the ideas for questions, right? All right, I'm scrolling back up, see if I missed something. Yeah. You know what? What people often say to me is, there one piece of advice that you can give me that will help me be successful as a taxi member? And obviously there are many, many, many pieces of advice I can give you, but one that pops up all the time is people wait until they've got a finished CD and they're so proud of it and they get it pressed up at disc makers and it's got a great looking cover and it's got credits and they're so proud of it on so many levels, and then they end up pitching the 3 or 4 best songs from that CD over and over, to virtually every listing, and inevitably, about a year later, after they've quit and probably gotten a refund, then they come crawling back on bent knee and say, I really never should have asked for the refund, but I'm keeping it anyway. I should have never quit, and I'm rejoining. And I learned my lesson, and I see this in the taxi forum at forums with an S, forums.taxi.com, where people actually will say, I wasted my entire first year of membership by pitching the stuff that I did before I was a member that wasn't all that good, frankly, and that's me saying that parenthetically for them. I pitched that stuff over and over because I was trying so hard to get that square peg into any round hole I could find, because I spent so much time, so much money, so much love crafting that CD. And really what I found out in the end was my music wasn't as good and finished and ready to go as I thought it was. And the people around me that are successful using Taxi are people that are seeing listings and writing music for those listings. Rather than trying to put a square peg in a round hole, they're creating round pegs on the fly for round holes.
I have a few for you.
Okay, go ahead.
How much do people worry about getting sued for copyright when writing cues? My lawyer wants to know, and that's from Jason K125.
Okay, Jason, how much do people, say it again, how much do people worry?
How much do people worry about getting sued for copyright when writing cues?
Honestly, I don't know, because I don't live inside of their heads. But as I said earlier in the show today, it's not like a cue has the potential to become a hit song that earns millions of dollars. Chances are it's going to earn, it's a penny business. The instrumental cue business is referred to by people in the industry as a penny business. And you just make a lot of pennies, do it over and over again, and it adds up. It becomes cumulative over time as well. So they don't worry about a cue getting ripped off. Why would you even go to the trouble of suing somebody over a cue that in its lifetime might make you a few $100? Not worth it. 1 hour of a music attorney's time is going to cost you $250 to $400. That's just 1 hour. That's just the poison pen letter going out to the person that you think ripped you off, whether they did it by intent or by accident or even ripped you off at all. You're going to spend more money on that 1 hour and that one letter going out to that person than it's likely that that cue will ever make you in your lifetime. So I'm not encouraging people to not register their stuff with the Copyright Office, and I'm not encouraging people to rip anybody off, but those are the realities of the situation. And frankly, in 25 years of owning Taxi, I've never had anybody come to me and say, so-and-so ripped off my cue. We've had some people that thought their songs got ripped off, and they hadn't been, frankly. But nobody's ever complained about a cue getting ripped off. Okay, next question.
Is there a growing demand for trailer cues? And that's from Tremel Willis.
All right, Tremel Willis wants to know, is there a growing demand for trailer cues? Funny, I was just reading about the trailer industry over the weekend. Here's my take on it. This is a consolidated take on it. First of all, everybody wants their music in trailers because they pay super well. They don't pay as well as they used to, but they do pay really, really well, like often tens of thousands of dollars. The days of the big bombastic trailer cue with a full orchestra, some electronic instrumentation, some guitars, taiko drums, that kind of stuff that we've seen for years and years is actually on the down. And frankly, it's been replaced over the last several years to some extent, not entirely. I mean, look, don't take anything as an absolute. But there are definitely less of the big, bombastic, orchestral-based cues out there. There are more of the reimagined hit songs of the past out there being used in cues. Now, obviously, if you're taking somebody else's song, and you could probably do your homework, think about this. What kind of keywords would be found in songs that would be used for cues for movies? Well, many movies are about a love/romantic relationship. So look for songs that have been hits in the past that everybody would know, and then change it by making a fast song slow, a slow song fast, changing the attitude in the vocal, changing the textural stuff. Whereas, let's say before the song was played with a regular drum kit, doing boom, bop, boom, bop. Now do it maybe with brushes. Take a jazz approach, or maybe an acoustic, slowed down, ethereal acoustic approach, or maybe piano with a room reverb on it, where it's 60% of the sound is the reverb and not the direct piano signal. It's kind of ethereal and moody and has a vocal that's very moody. That style is very popular, and everybody in the trailer world is waiting with bated breath for that stuff to go away. But I think that they're waiting with bated breath like they're waiting for ukulele, happy, clappy, snappy ukulele cues to go away. Hasn't happened. It will, because everything is a fashion and everything goes away eventually. Um, Here's one from Robbie Hancock. What's your best advice to capture the best vocal going into the mic, whichever mic you choose? Straight in, 2 fists away from the pop screen, turn the capsule, would love your thoughts. That's a great question, and I happen to be kind of an expert on that. I take great pride in my microphone skills because I grew up in that era of the industry when that stuff really mattered. My general rule of thumb, of course, it can't apply to everybody, but general rule of thumb is that. So here, let's find out what that is. That is 7 inches. Okay. um, would that be 2 fists? Let's find out. You know what? 2 fists would be 7 inches. So there you go, Robbie. You nailed it on the 2 fists. That is a good distance, and it's a starting point. Some vocalists, if you're working with somebody that sings like Steve Perry, you're going to put that person 3 feet back from the microphone so you don't crap out the diaphragm. And you should think about things like when they say padding a microphone, they don't mean throwing a pad, physical pad over it. They mean an electronic pad, which knocks down the signal by 10 dB. Um, the other thing is, by singing slightly off axis, you're going to change the tonality and the timbre of the vocal. You take a vocal, sometimes it works to your advantage. If you have a vocal that sounds a little too fat because of proximity effect, which is getting close to the microphone, you get more bottom end. Sometimes you want the intimacy of being really close for a really intimate, romantic vocal, but you don't want the proximity effect that goes along with that. So you take the mic and rotate it 5 or 10 degrees, and you're going to lose that. It's going to thin it back out. So you're going to get the closeness where it sounds like somebody's singing an inch away from your ear, but you're going to lose that fat bottom end. I tend to, something that I've done to fake singers out in the past is I'll set up 2 microphones on them, one on top of the other one. Okay, microphone A, microphone B. And I set it up like that in front of them. And yes, here, I'll do it this way. It's awesome because you've got 2 microphones that are on the identical plane, identical distance from the sound source, which is obviously the singer's mouth. But you can, if you've got a singer that's popping a lot of P's or doesn't sound good in the typical mic position, and you want to raise the mic up a little bit so that they're popping their P's underneath the capsule or over the capsule, as it were, by setting up 2 microphones, not only do you get 2 choices, but take the one that you think is the better bet and make that the one if you've got the popping P problem by lowering it or raising it to eliminate it. Another thing that's related to that is if you take microphone, Rockstar, take a microphone and put it so that it is, I can't tell if this is showing up on camera or not, but take it and put it so that it looks down at the vocalist's mouth on an angle. So you get the full effect. But when they're singing, if they're not looking up and trying to sing into it, tell them to sing straight ahead, every plosive they got, every P is going to shoot out underneath the microphone and miss the capsule of the microphone. So there you go. Michael, did you learn that in Hawaii? What did I learn in Hawaii? I don't know, Mark. I'd have to scroll up to see that. Oh, we're talking about the ukulele stuff. Um, all right.
I have some questions.
Okay. Lay one on me.
Do you ever get requests for music recorded in surround sound?
No. The question is, do we ever get requests for music recorded in surround sound? No.
And then I'm from Anna Yarbrough. I'm fuzzy on the details of YouTube. How do you get paid on there? Ad/streaming royalties, and do you need to make sure your YouTube tracks are registered with HFA/Sonic?
I'm a friggin' genius on a lot of things. That ain't one of them. I'm not a genius, by the way. I'm well informed about a lot of things in the music industry, and frankly, because it's the wild, wild, wild west out there, I keep asking. You guys watched? Was it last week that I had on? Uh, yeah, Michael Ames, who Bobby Borg too. Bobby is certainly intelligent about a lot of stuff. Michael Ames, in particular, is like one of the most incredibly well-informed people on the planet on this subject, and even he admits it's confusing. Frankly, I don't have a good answer for you, Anna, other than one thing that was a takeaway from last week's show, which was quite astonishing to me, and I didn't know this prior, which is, oh, here comes a rock star burp. Much better, thank you. Excuse me. If you are the person who owns the master, you make considerably more money than if you're the songwriter. Fascinating, huh? So I can't explain to you. Go back and watch last week's episode of Taxi TV, which is now on YouTube, with Bobby Borg and Michael Ames. And Michael Ames does a great job of explaining that stuff. Not that Bobby Borg's a slouch on the subject. Michael Ames is like a rock star on the subject. Anyway, he got my attention when he pointed out that you actually get more money, and not just a little bit more money, but quite a bit more money. I can't quantify that exactly because I'd probably be giving you a false number, but I do remember he said that people who own the master are killing it. And that is some of the reason why record companies um, do really well with YouTube and other forms of online music is because they own the masters in most cases. So in the old days of radio, you could make a crap ton of money being the songwriter from performance royalties because your song would play over and over again. Well, apparently in today's world, it's kind of that way for the person who owns the master. So that's why I keep telling people get over your fear of technology. Learn how to master your own home studio. The tools you need are all there. They're pretty darn inexpensive. You don't need to go out and spend $5,000 or $10,000 to make great sounding recordings. Frankly, I've heard stuff that GarageBand is so good right now. I mean, yeah, sure. What's it called? What do you have?
Logic.
Logic is like Pro Tools on steroids. But you know what? Logic is like GarageBand on steroids. You can make a record on GarageBand. So there you go. Um, there, there's just no reason that you shouldn't be creating your own masters. If you rely on somebody else to do your productions for you, get over it. Next question.
Is there still a market for dramedy cues? Mark Doyle.
Mark Doyle, great question. Is there still a market for dramedy cues? Yes. You would think it'd be oversaturated, but you know what? Here's an interesting thing. Everything ages, right? With the exception of what are the Converse sneakers that everybody owns a pair of, black and white ones?
Chuck Taylor.
What are they called?
The Chuck Taylors.
There's another name for it. Anyway,
Ulcers.
everybody's got Converse sneakers, and they have withstood the test of time. But look at Hush Puppies. They were big in the 60s, came back again in the early to mid 90s, and now have more or less vanished from the scene again. Dramedy is hot and has been hot for the last several years, especially on reality TV. But the library owners and the video editors slugging that stuff into reality TV want a fresh take on dramedy. They want a fresh take on everything. Now, the instinct of many musicians is, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to create something so totally new and amazing that everybody's going to go, you're a friggin' genius. Why didn't I think of that? Why haven't I been using your music all these years? But you know what? If it's too different, chances are it's going to scare them off or it's going to be unusable. So you want it to be somewhat different, a little different. I call it the 15% rule. Go listen to the existing dramedy cues and change them up by 15% so that they're just different enough where the editor who's auditioning dramedy cues coming out of a bin in an edit bay, and that's not a physical bin, I'm talking a digital bin where they've got 100 dramedy cues and they're probably going to start at the top of the list or look for the stuff with the best titles that's the most appropriate for the kind of dramedy that they want for that scene. Um, when they hear something that hasn't been done 1,000 times before, something that doesn't sound like everything else they've slugged into a scene that needed a dramedy cue, that's the one they're going to fall off the log in favor of. So yes, dramedy's still in fashion. Just make dramedy that's fresher and better.
Xbox Rocks asks,
That was funny. Bria trying to say Xbox Rocks asks.
what trends or genre hybrids do you see happening in the near future, now till 2 years from now?
All right. So Xbox wants to know what genres and or blended genres, hybrids of genres do I see happening in the future? Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. But you know what? Here's how you can find out. Um, it takes a little work. Obviously, one way is look at the taxi listings. Those are fresh, current, in the moment needs that either music libraries slash publishers have because music supervisors are asking them directly, or they're needs that where music supervisors are coming, or commercial ad agencies, whatever, coming to taxi. What they're asking for is where it's at right now. If you want to be ahead of the curve, go check out music blogs. Oh gosh, what's the one that's like famous that everybody goes to? I can't think of it right now. Live TV sucks. It's hard to not think of stuff in front of a room full of people. But anyway, you know what? Go online and look for the slightly more obscure music blogs. The hipster music blogs that are generally, 20-something people with the really cool, super trimmed beards, and they probably live in Portland and they drink coffee they can't afford. Those are the people that, even though you may listen to the music that they like and put in their blog and go, oh, you can't even call that music. You know what? 3 years from now, everybody will be calling it music. So as much as it's painful to change and adopt and adapt, you got to do it because music supervisors follow trends, and frankly, they are kind of forced to follow trends by the directors. You'd be shocked how many directors of movies and executive producers of TV shows and films are huge music fans. Many of them are musicians themselves, and because they're hipsters and they live in Hollywood and they follow cool, trendy stuff, they probably are old enough that they've got kids that know what the next great thing is going to be. So that's where the trends are set, and that's where, if you really want to be on top of it, like 2 years out, go to music blogs and just know that the stuff that you can't stand is where it's going to be.
Martin Frog asks, Michael, do you plan on doing a new or updated version of your How Things Fit in a Mix, using your backyard to explain it?
Oh man, I can't believe that you watched that, Martin. That thing is like 7 years old now. I actually went back and rewatched it and was like dying of embarrassment. On one hand, I felt like I did a really good job of making the point. For those of you who don't know, 6, 7 years ago. I was standing in the backyard one day. Our kids were much smaller at the time, and like all children, they have those plastic molded, like chairs and tables and ponies and slides and Fred Flintstone-esque cars. Um, and I think I was cleaning the stuff out of the yard because I knew that the guy who cuts the grass was coming, and he would just like mow right over that stuff. This guy's destroyed so much of our property with his lawnmower; it's sickening. Anyway, I started cleaning the stuff up, and as I was, our backyard looks out at a mountain range. The people behind us are below us, so we have an unobstructed view of a mountain range that's about 8/10 of a mile away from our backyard. It's pretty awesome. And I don't mean awesome like that's really cool awesome. I mean awesome like you look at it and you stand there in awe. It's almost a little intimidating to have something that big staring you in the face. And as I was looking out at the mountain range and there was a red plastic chair in the yard, I remember thinking, it's kind of like when somebody explained the oral landscape. And I don't mean oral like Oral, I mean Aur, whatever, how you spell that. Oral, like goes in your ears. So I remember thinking that the red chair was like the kick drum, front and center. And as somebody explained to me many, many years ago, that when you mix, think of an artist's landscape, that the grass that's close, the stuff that's close to you is going to be very bright. The chromatics, whatever, are going to be brighter, more distinct, more defined because it's close and your eye sees it. There's no air, there's no moisture in the air, there's no atmosphere between you and the object, the grass. Then a little further back, maybe 20, 30, 40 feet away, is a hedgerow or something. And that could be a little different color and it's spread wide and it's a little less defined because that's the way your eyes work, depth of field. And then beyond that is yet something else that's a little further out. And then finally, in the far distance, you have the mountain range. Well, if you think about your mixing in that same light, it starts to become clear that not everything should be up front where that green grass is. And the red chair defined the middle to me. So I started taking other kids' furniture, placing it around the backyard, and pretty soon I realized that what I had done was created kind of an oral landscape using my kids' toys. So I videotaped that and or took still shots of it, put it up in Taxi TV, and used it. And frankly, I don't know that I can beat it. And the rules that I espoused in that video are still the same rules today. If you want to go back and hear really crazy stuff as far as where things are panned in the oral landscape, is front, center, far left, far right, all that kind of stuff. 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. None of that stuff makes a hit record, generally speaking, right? Hit songs make hit records. Hit performances make hit records. Where you pan your hi-hat does generally not make a hit record. Pretty slim chance of it, as a matter of fact. So that stuff's all good to know. And frankly, again, some people want to, like, I'm going to set the world on fire and do something so totally radically different that everybody's going to notice. They're going to think I'm a genius and I'm going to change the entire industry, the complexion of the entire industry by what I've done. Well, go back and listen to like the Cream record, Disraeli Gears, which I believe is the first album that Cream put out. Go back and listen to early Beatles stuff where it was done, where they did stereo mixes of Beatles stuff. And you've got, like the full drum kit panned over there, full left. And the lead vocal is at 2 o'clock and the background vocals, the harmonies, are at 9 o'clock way over to the side. It's hard to listen to. So what people figured out over time was that, set it up like you would see it on stage. As if you're sitting in the audience, sixth row center at a concert, and the drummer and the bass are going to be coming from the middle. The guitar player is going to be a little off to the side. The keyboard is going to be a little off to the other side, and they're going to balance each other with equal weight. If you've got a guitar doing chunka chunka over here, and it's in a lower mid register, then maybe a piano part that's doing tinkle tinkle over there, the two things kind of, you go, oh, I noticed that and I noticed that. But neither of them pulls me off to the side. They balance each other. So that's what that episode was about. I just gave you the encapsulated version. There you go. There's your snare drum right there. Next question.
Joe Canizaro asks, since I can't write to the listings, I've tried. Am I wasting my money submitting to listings with a song from my library of 50 plus pre-written and mixed material, trying to match to specific requests?
More often than not, but the question I have, Joe, is any of that stuff from like the 1990s, 1980s, 1970s, because if it is, you may have stuff that's got value. We work with a few publishers, one in particular, and please don't blur it out in the chat room, you guys, please. I know some of you know the name of this company, but you don't need to let everybody know. But we work with publishers that run listings where they're looking for stuff. I call them antiques. A grunge song that you recorded in '92 trying to get a record deal, and you didn't get a record deal, might be a really good demo. Never made it to a label, never made it to a radio station, but you know what? It's very indicative of the time in which it was recorded. And that's what these publishers sign. They're not looking for hits. They're looking for something that says this sounds and feels like 1992. Why? Because you're working on a movie, or Music Soup's working on a movie, and it takes place in 1992, and a couple of dope smoking college kids are sitting in their room and they're talking about whether they should order a pizza from Domino's or go to the bowling alley and eat a burger. And what's going on? Little Grunge is playing in the background of the dorm room while they're firing up the bong, and they don't want to pay $500,000 to license Smells Like Teen Spirit, so they're going to get something that sounds authentic from the time period that's in that style and is not a rip-off of it, and that could be you if your 50 songs date back that far. So all hope is not lost.
Patrick Wara asks, when submitting to a listing, what is more important, the text or the example tracks?
We get that question a lot. It changes. The question is, what's more important, what's written in the text or the examples? Just know, and this was part of the conversation I had with the supervisor at lunch yesterday, unless they say that they're looking, they will give you a nod and a wink generally and say they're looking for something that might appropriate a lot of the fashion of a particular song because they tempt it in and the director or the executive producer is so in love with it and it works really well in the scene, so they want a song that sounds like what's the Rolling Stones, Miss You by the Rolling Stones. They may say we're looking for something that doesn't rip off, it's a lot like Miss You. Or in our case, we give you 3 examples. It doesn't mean they want something that's going to appropriate that or rip it off. What they're looking for is something, as we say in listings, that would be on a playlist or be appreciated by somebody that loves the Rolling Stones and loves the song Miss You in particular. Do these other 2 songs also go on a playlist? Yes. Would your song fit on a playlist with those? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably right. The text is to get you closer. What are the elements? Now, a lot of times it's the same elements. It's a really strong chorus, it's an engaging melody, it's compelling lyric. I mean, those things are common to many great songs. Those things are common to many hit songs. Those things are common to songs that work well in the context of a scene in a movie or a TV show. So it's not like we can come up with, we can't write the lyric for you, but we can tell you that it's got to be compelling. We can tell you that they want some ear candy, which means cool little licks at the end of a lyric line, or maybe a little piano fall or a synthesizer riff or something. Those are things that are ear candy. Could be a percussive thing. Could be the way the phraseology, the way a lyric comes out of your mouth, doing something that's unusual, but at the same time catchy. That makes it ear candy. That's also, in today's world, a hook. Back in my day when we rode dinosaurs to work, a hook meant the hook of the song. I will always love you. That was the hook. In today's speak, The hook can be a multitude. Hooks are a multitude of little things that all add up to be the bigger thing. You'll also notice, this is not really an answer to your question, but something that I've noticed a lot, which is today's pop hits don't have the big ass hooks like the pop hits of yesteryears. They still have really strong hooks, and now I'm talking about the the chorus. Choruses don't do that. They don't do ta-da as much as they used to, but they do it in a different way. They still are really important, and they still are catchy, and they still stick with you. They may not be on a production level as big and bombastic as choruses of the past, but what they are is thicker. Um, More instrumentation is introduced, but if you listen carefully, my personal take on it is a lot of the reason that they sound thicker is the stuff that preceded the chorus is thinner, meaning skinnier, meaning less stuff in the production. Um, what's the Ed Sheeran song?
Shape of You.
What?
Shape of
Yeah,
You.
Shape of You. Great example. Go listen to Ed Sheeran's Shape of You like 20 times tonight. And as you're listening, block it out. Write down intro, how many bars it is, verse, how many bars it is, how many lines are in the verse. What happens at the end of the verse before it goes into the chorus? Does it go into a pre-chorus or a B-verse, some people call it? Does it lift into the chorus with that? But notice, even more importantly for this conversation, is what the instrumentation is. The Ed Sheeran thing is really skinny instrumentation-wise. And the chorus in that song, instrumentation-wise, is probably more akin to what verses used to be like, as far as the number of things that are in there. But as we learned 2 weeks ago when I did the Taxi TV from Create Music Academy at Westlake Studios in Hollywood, Doug Fensky pointed out something really important, which was, layering. Which many of you guys who are more advanced know this. Some of you who are not quite advanced yet should know this. Take a kick drum, famous 808 drum machine from Roland, I think, back in the day. An 808 sound by itself sounds good. Layering an 808 with other stuff may sound even better. Hey, Scott Hansen, how you doing, buddy? Uh, so while the parts it may not be a multitude of parts in Shape of You by Ed Sheeran, um, listen carefully to those sounds. Chances are that each sound, it may be an acoustic guitar doing do 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 do, but it could be a steel string acoustic guitar combined with a gut string acoustic guitar playing the exact same thing. Both of them compressed like crazy, and then with like a really short delay on it, and then pan one across from the other. And what you get is this sense of the guitar is in a space. You're in the space with the guitar, and the guitar jumps out. But it's a really simple part. And it's because of the layer and that slight delay that gives it import and gives the sound and the song a texture and a vibe and creates an emotion with nothing more than that little chicken picking guitar part. So there you go. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope so. Got another one?
Yeah, SIAS asks if we have a song that is dynamic enough to have a section later on in it that would be great for a licensing off. How can we note that so it's not passed because of an unfit beginning?
It's a great question. It's from SIASS. C as ass?
SIAS.
SIAS, so no
I
ass.
said
Okay. Ciaz. Ciaz. That's a great question. The question is, if I've got a song with a chorus that would work really well for a licensing situation, how can I notate that or annotate that so that somebody who's listening knows to wait for it? Um, Honestly, not a high probability situation. I could call, like, Frank Palazzolo is a good friend. I could call Frank and say, dude, I just sent you a song. Sias, there we go. Okay, not Sias. Thank you, Sias. I could call up, any one of a number of supervisors that I know and say, look, I'm sending over something to you. When you first listen to it, you're not going to dig it. But I am willing to bet my reputation with you that when you get to the chorus, you're going to go, oh my God. I can do that once a year with a music supervisor. I could do that once a year with a library owner. I can't do it once a month. I can't do it 3 or 4 times a year. So therefore, just consider it, like sleeping with the fishes, dead to me now. Pretend that that reality doesn't exist. Because the number of times that you or anybody else you know who might be pitching your stuff can wave that flag or flick that switch for you to say, just wait until you get to the chorus. That's not the way the industry operates. If you don't nail them in the first few seconds, as a matter of fact, I was at an event a few weeks ago, and Frank Palazzolo was there. He's a music supervisor. Um, Maybe it was on an episode of Taxi TV. I can't remember the context. Somewhere I said, no, I was hanging out with some people at the Hawaii Songwriters thing. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. We were talking about what we always talk about, which is pitching and using music. And I said, yeah, look at Palazzolo. Last year at the Road Rally, he talked about um, auditioning 1,000 songs in an hour. And right now, those of you watching the show are going, 1,000 songs in an hour? How could that be? He barely listened. And you know what? You'd be absolutely right. Because he knows, he can intuit what it is that he's looking for. He can feel it. He knows when it's coming. And I would bet you a car that if we were all to sit there and take bets on Frank or any other experienced music supervisor listening to literally 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 seconds at the outside of something and knowing whether or not it should go into the file of this may work, um, he'd be right. 99.9% of the time, he would be right. So you've got to have something going on that immediately grabs their attention and holds it long enough for them to get to that meaty stuff that they can use.
Marion Laird asks, are really good sampled instruments and keyboards good enough to use in instrumental cues?
Okay, Marion Laird wants to know, are really good sample instruments and really well used sampled instruments good enough to use in instrumental cues? I don't know if Dean Crepane is still watching the show, but that guy, he is not the most technologically advanced musician you've ever met, and that by his own admission. He uses some old-fashioned libraries that he jokes about. Um, and yet his stuff sounds amazingly good. So there are 2 tricks. Number one is don't try and make a sampled instrument do something that doesn't happen in the real world, because then it won't sound real. 3 tricks. Number 2, I guess this is a follow-on to number 1, which is make the part really simple. Could you use an acoustic guitar sample? Gosh, that makes my skin crawl when I think about it. But if it's just an arpeggiated open chord brown strum, there are some sample libraries that sound so good, I wouldn't know the difference. Most people, I don't think anybody would know the difference on some of the stuff. The minute you try and do something more complex that requires a lot of feel in your left hand as to like how hard you're holding the strings down on the fretboard, because you're doing chunkas, vacillating between chunkas and open chord strums or something. Those are the little intricacies that are often hard to imitate using software. Now, number 3 is, let's assume that you're doing a guitar cue, an acoustic guitar instrumental cue that is a swampy instrumental cue. It's sunset, the mosquitoes are coming out, you and the boys have killed enough alligators today that you're going home. And you fire up the engine on the boat, and as you make your way through that channel out in the Everglades, and the sun's going down, and you hear brown, use the sample thing for the brown, the arpeggiated chord, but play the other part with a real dobro and a real slide. That will trick your brain into thinking the other guitar is real. Think about that, ingest it, regurgitate it, try it over and over. It will work. Um, Better to use all organic, but if you can't, do that. One more.
Okay, Bob Gunnerfeld asks, I wrote and played in the 60s and 70s. A recent listing asked for only recordings from those years, but not recently recorded. Why do recent recordings on my songs from back then not why are recent recordings on my songs from back then not submittable?
It's a great question, and that was Bob
Gunnerfeld.
Bob Gunderfeld. Uh, so Bob wants to know, he wrote a bunch of stuff in the 60s and 70s, but recorded the stuff more recently. And a lot of listings he's seen for vintage music, not only do they want stuff that was written in the 60s and 70s, they want stuff that was recorded back then. And he wants to know, why is that? If I wrote it back then, why does the recording have to date back to that era? The reason is because of the sound. It lends authenticity. Um, Take a state-of-the-art studio from 1975 and play it, something that was recorded there. And as much as it was a state-of-the-art studio, it just has a sound. Even if you did stuff on a TAC 4-track back then, it has a sound. Not just because it's analog, um, it's just got a sound. And the guys at the publishing companies that we work with that ask for that vintage material, they can spot an imitation where somebody labored and sweated and toiled over making something sound like it's an antique piece or a vintage piece of music. You can't fool them. You can fool me. You can probably fool some of the screeners, but you can't fool them. There have been times where we've forwarded them stuff that we're sure was vintage music from back in the day, or vintage recording, and I get a phone call saying, "Man, you need to talk to your screeners because they missed it." We did a thing at the Road Rally 3 years ago with one of the publishers, and we actually played stuff that was made to sound old, and it was really, really good, like incredibly excellent. And on its own, before we A-B'd it with the actual vintage stuff, everybody in the room went, "Oh yeah, that's old." And then they heard, as soon as they heard like the first two bars of the really vintage stuff, they went, "Oh, we were duped." So there you go. That's your answer. All right, you guys. Yay, I did it. 90 minutes with only one little bit of buffering on the part of YouTube, and you guys made it through the sound of the fan going. We'll try and solve that problem. But remember, the road rally is coming up. I am working. Literally, I leave here at like 7 o'clock at night, go home and work another 2 or 3 hours. I'm working Saturdays, I'm working Sundays. Oh, break out your violins for me. The point is, do I really have the time to solve this problem? No. Do I want to make this year's road rally the best ever? Yep. That's where my efforts are going. So we'll listen to a little fan noise between now and the rally, but then we'll solve the problem after that. I'm tired. My throat is dry. I think I need a sip of Rockstar so that my throat is in really good shape for the Road Rally coming up November 2nd through the 5th, 2017 in Los Angeles, California. Be there, be square. It's going to kick ass. And if you're not there, you're going to just move your whole career back 1 year. Do you really want to do that to yourself? With that, I bid you adieu. Oh, do I know what I'm doing next week? I think I do. I think we might have. We do. Jeff Steinman coming. Jeff owns Warp 4 Technologies. He probably wouldn't admit it publicly. I just saw a thing go by that said Vacation Cleveland 2018. That had to be Scott Hansen. Anyway, Jeff Steinman is a boutique sample library owner. And this gentleman does like brass samples that would blow your mind. And I think, hey Jeff, there. Oh, he's in the chat room. Okay, Jeff. Next week, are we doing woodwinds? Is that what we're doing? I honestly can't remember. Um, but I guarantee you that whatever Jeff Steinman brings will leave you in awe. He's really smart and he's totally obsessive about doing stuff perfectly. So, come on, Steinman, spit it out. There's Bob Gunnerfelt again. Yep, epic Marienthal woodwinds. Marienthal, wasn't she on Happy Days? Anyway, some of you will get that joke. Others of you may not. But you know what? You'll have to wait till next week for another incredibly good joke on Taxi TV Live, baby. Woo-hoo! See you next week. Over and out.